Hello, and welcome to I Will Be Your Voice, a McKinney-Vento. My name is Elizabeth Fortner, and I am the Outreach and Marketing Specialist for the Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness program in Region 3. I'm joined today by my partner in communications, Amanda Claire. Hi, Amanda. How are you this morning?
Doing great, Liz. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with me this morning. So today we are joined by our special guest from Region 1, Al, to talk to him about his dissertation on when McKinney-Vento goes away. Dr. Alfred B. Quarles Jr. was born and raised in Abington, Pennsylvania. He attended Millersville University of Pennsylvania, where he earned a bachelor's degree in speech communications, Temple University, where he earned a master's degree in educational psychology, and Gwynedd, did I say that right?
Gwynedd Mercy.
Gwynedd Mercy University, where he earned a doctoral degree in educational leadership. For the past 19 years, he has worked for the School District of Philadelphia and has been the McKinney-Vento Region 1 coordinator for over 16 of those years. During that time, he served twice on the Pennsylvania Secretary of Education's Homeless Task Force and was a state and national presenter on homeless education. Dr. Quarles is a family man, author, adjunct professor, entrepreneur, and avid golfer. Welcome, Al, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's truly an honor to be here with you ladies, so I'm excited.
Yes, so are we. So Al, to begin, can you share what inspired you to choose when McKinney-Vento goes away as your dissertation research topic?
Absolutely. I knew that if I went back to school to get my doctorate, that was a topic that I had to really look into. And that's mainly because when I initially stepped into the role of regional coordinator here in Region 1, which is Philadelphia, and we were serving children here in the city, I noticed that many of our teenagers, in need of more services and supports than the average student. And I say that because a lot of times the younger children, even though they may be sheltered, double up, or in other situations, they were, with a parent or a guardian. Whereas our teenagers often were couch surfing. They were living here today. They were living somewhere tomorrow. They were having to work. They were doing this. They were doing that. They were very transient. They were less likely to self-identify. And once we were able to identify them, they became family. They were the students that would come to our office very frequently, but they needed a lot of support. And as our program continued to grow, we would send these students off to college and they would come back all the time. They would call us. They would need this. They would need that. I would find myself taking students to school. I would find myself, trying to help students, figure out where they were going to stay over the holiday. I was doing McKinney-Vento letters for, college students every year. They would have to get a new letter for their FAFSA. So really, this population really chose me. Through my work, I really found myself passionate about helping these young folks and really seeing what I could do as far as removing barriers when McKinney-Vento went away. Right now, I have a freshman in college, and she needs something all the time. And, it's crazy. And before that, I would say to myself, what would happen if I couldn't call my mom and get $20? Or if I couldn't get this done? Or, as I was sitting down helping children prepare for the FAFSA or fill out their paperwork or do things like that, it was really kind of crazy. So we created a teen program here at the School District of Philadelphia for that population specifically. And it has grown over the last 15 years. But I said, I would really love to do some research on this population and see, in addition to the students that I'm aware of and I know, was this a global issue? So that's really what my research was about, really looking at, what happens when McKinney-Vento goes away and these students go away to college or any form of higher education.
It's definitely an important topic. And I like how you stepped into their shoes to kind of gather an idea as to what you would do if you can't call your mom.
Correct.
So what was the purpose of your proposal then?
So what I wanted to do is I wanted to explore the lived experience of unaccompanied homeless youth on college campuses where the safety and security of the federal McKinney-Vento Act is no longer a present safeguard. We are mandated by federal law to support this population when they are in, our K-12 right now, our, pre-K Head Start programs as well. So we're mandated to support this population. So I was wondering, what would happen, if these things were in place for higher education, or what happens because they're not in place during higher education. So, my research questions were, what are the specific educational barriers that unaccompanied homeless youth face at a college or university? Like, what do they face? What is is the main issue? What are some of the things that they're coming up against that, really we need to look at helping to remove? What effect does conducting intervention services, such as a single point of contact or a SPOC, have on this population when they go to a college or university? Because we're aware that some states, some colleges have a single point of contact. They have a person on campus that is specifically designated to work with either students coming out of foster care or students coming out of McKinney-Vento programs where, they can, take them by the hand and kind of guide them through. They can be an advocate. They can make sure they have everything they need. So what effect does that have? And, what effect does current legislation have on college universities' support services? So that's something that's still in the works. That was a little harder for me to research because as they continue to pass additional laws for foster care, McKinney-Vento students haven't, advanced as much as some of the foster care laws have. So that was a little harder for me to research. But they were the main three areas I was trying to figure out through the purpose of the study, how they really played a factor on this population of students.
It sounds like this was a really extensive research project, so thank goodness you did it. I mean, we need that, we need people like you out there willing to dig into the hard stuff. So let's talk about the data and the outcomes. Okay. I want to hear more about that.
Okay, so I think first of all, let me say this. When I went into this research study, I said I'm a McKinney-Vento liaison. I'm a regional coordinator. I'll be able to get hundreds of students to participate in this study. That wasn't the case. I really faced a lot of challenges in identifying students. First of all, I couldn't use students that I knew. There are safeguards in place for that and all kinds of, there's an internal review board that you have to go through, before you conduct research to make sure that your participants are guarded and safe. And, everything is cared for so they don't have to worry about anything. So part of that process is I couldn't use students that I knew. I used social media platforms. I knew someone who was the moderator of a few groups of these students or this population on Instagram and Facebook, where, former or present unaccompanied youth who had went to college were kind of sharing their own experiences, and they were, camaraderie and, talking about some of these things. So I was able to post in those groups with the help of the moderator and begin to collect data and participants that were willing to be part of the study. It was a long process to try to get participants, and it was becoming frustrating because it was hard to find them. I couldn't get them. I couldn't get them to volunteer to come forward. So what happened was I ended up starting to slowly get folks come in saying they're willing to participate. I started the process, my interview questions, taking them through, things I had set up, and themes started to emerge. So because of that, my internal review board at Gwynedd Mercy allowed me, because themes were emerging in the 5 or 6 or 7 folks that I had began to identify and begin to collect data on, that I was able to do a research study with 12 participants. But once again, common themes were emerging, which was able to show, trends. And, these weren't students going to the same school. They were going to different universities, different colleges. So I was able to begin to show through my research, some of the things that they were facing. I used past and present unaccompanied homeless youth that have attended various 2- and 4-year institutions. 7 of them were female, 5 were male, 6 were African-American, 6 were Caucasian. All 12 of the participants experienced periods of homelessness while they were in high school. 5 of the participants had lived experience on campus of a community college, and 10 had lived experience at a 4-year college or university. 3 of the participants have been enrolled full-time at both community college and a 4-year institution. So that gave me a good a group to study from across different platforms and a different dynamic. So that's primarily what I did. 6 were African-American, 6 were Caucasian. 7 of them were female. I believe I mentioned 5 were male. 9 of them graduated. 3 did not graduate. Only 2 out of the 10, out of 2 graduated on time, and 10 did not graduate on time out of the 12. So I thought that was significant as well as I was gathering my information.
So it sounds like that was a really interesting cross-section of students with a lot of different dynamics, and that really helped speak to how different it can be when you're looking at students that are in grade school level as well.
Yes.
That it just really runs the gamut of what that looks like.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about it, but what were the overall themes that you saw recurring in your research?
That's a great question. So the themes that were emerging was unpreparedness. Out of all of the students that or past present students that I conducted research on, many of them were adults. Most of them were adults, I should say, who had, already been through the college system. They were unprepared. They were unprepared or ill-prepared to go on to higher education without having additional services and supports in place, without being directly handed off to someone on campus who, an adult, who had the ability to advocate for them, to look out for them, to support them, to guide them, to mentor them, to, just be an ear in some situations, to hear. And, they had many concerns, while they were on campus. And, just someone to help, ease some of those concerns, things that, students tend to take for granted, in many situations, such as my daughter who's on the campus. I was talking to her about this the other day. I'm like, stuff that we take for granted. There are students who really have none of this. Like, where am I going to stay when the dorms close over the holidays? I had students when I started, as the regional coordinator, that would come back to Philadelphia and have to find shelter at our local teen shelter. They would have to go to Covenant House to stay over the holiday, or, they were worried the entire time, which one of my friends, his parents will let me come stay with them over the holiday, or, situations such as that we tend to take for granted. And while many college students are, actively engaged in college life, most of these students had to work. They had to work, you know what I mean? They had to, work multiple jobs in many situations just to make ends meet. So some of the social aspects of college were not there. Cafeterias closed over the holidays. So how am I going to do that? Even if I have somewhere to live, even if I can stay in a dorm or, off campus or, somewhere, where I'm housed, but how am I going to eat? How am I going to get this done? There's a lot of little things that we need in college, like books, costs. And, my daughter just, hey, Dad, I have 2 books and they're both, they're cheap. They're both $90 a piece. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what a bargain, right? Just little things that we tend to take for granted. So really, the unpreparedness, even during the FAFSA. I remember sitting down with a student and working on the FAFSA years ago and saying to myself, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. I couldn't imagine doing this by myself. I don't remember doing it when I went to school. I guess I'm aging myself, but, helping students to get this done. I was like, wow, what if you don't have anybody to help you? And that was something else that emerged during this study. That was one of the common themes, unpreparedness for filling out the FAFSA. So that was, that's even before they got to school. That was something that emerged.
It's a daunting thing. So, yeah. I mean, that's a lot to try to take on.
Like you said, even those things we take for granted, we don't even think about those things when we're thinking about college. We're just thinking about, I just want to go to college.
Absolutely.
And then we forget there's everything else in between that. Oh, wait, to get there, well, we have to knock off these barriers. So
right.
I think.
Right. Some of the, I looked at like 5 common themes. Preparedness for the FAFSA. That was one of the themes that emerged. None of the students felt fully prepared. Only 1 or 2 of them felt somewhat prepared when completing the FAFSA. I found out that most of them did not feel actively engaged on campus. That was significant. Most of them had food and housing insecurity. When I talked about where am I going to stay here? Where am I going to stay over the summer? Can I get an apartment? Can I go back to, my hometown? As far as perceptions of adequate support on campus, most of them did not feel that there was adequate support for them on their college or university campus. And perceptions of adequate faculty or staff support, most of them did not feel that they were adequately supported on campus. Now, I will say that most of those students who were successful identified a significant individual who was an adult on their campus who played a major role in their success. For some of them, it could have been a professor. For some of them, it could have been a single point of contact or a SPOC. For some of them, it could have been the guy who works at the student center who just, he was the manager of the student center who just took an interest in them and they worked for him and he helped advocate, with the classes and things like that. So it varied from participant to participant, but those who, were the most successful, even those who had some success, it was a significant individual on that campus that played a very important role. So that's one of the things that I highly recommend as we're preparing students, not just to send them to school, but to hand them off to someone specifically, if possible, if and when possible. And when we're, looking for where we're going to send them to higher education, we have to consider that, because it may sound great that I can go to ABC University. ABC University is highly ranked and, has all these acclimates, and it's highly acclaimed. It's the greatest university in the world. Is ABC University ready for you? Does ABC University have a dorm where you can stay over the holidays? Can you get into the work-study program there? Do they have a food pantry? Do they have a student support center? Do they have counseling on campus? That was another thing. Many of our students needed counseling while they were on campus because, there's, trauma involved with this, so trauma-informed care. I mean, these students have been through a lot. So when we send them off, they're asked to do adult things and they don't always feel like adults. They may, be adults as far as being 18 years old, but, I had one of the students say, I didn't feel like an adult. And people were expecting me to make the adult decisions. So we have to prepare them for those adult decisions that they're going to have to make and some of the challenges they may face. If they have a plan in place, what if this happens? What if that happens? Who are you going to call? What you going to do? So we have to just kind of look at some different scenarios and try to, same way we do a McKinney-Vento. What is the educational barrier? Let's see how we can remove those potential barriers.
So Al, so obviously, yes, knocking all those barriers out of the way. Is there somewhere for me to live? Is there a food pantry? Is there counseling services available? Is there like a directory? How can a student go about researching that for a specific campus that they're interested in attending? Is there, any resources out there that they can
there are resources and it continues to grow. Depending on like some states like Florida, if you're coming out of foster care or McKinney-Vento, like all of the universities and colleges in Florida are required to have a single point of contact on campus. That's not everywhere. It's growing. There are many at different colleges and universities here in Philadelphia, the Field Center, out of the University of Pennsylvania and I believe Children's Hospital, I believe they're all connected down here. They list different services and supports on different colleges and universities that they're aware of. So we really just have to, college counselors, liaisons, whoever that may be, social workers who are working with this population, really have to get on Google, have to do their due diligence to do some research. If a child's interested in ABC University, let's, check out ABC University. Let's make some calls to see what they have available. Let's compare and contrast that to, EFG University. What does EFG University have, available for this population? And then really kind of weigh the options and say, what is the best fit for this student and this student's needs? So really, just doing our research, which will require, some additional work, but, it's worth it, and, students right now, I like, my daughter was accepted to everywhere she applied for. So she was accepted to, say, 12 institutions. So once we're accepted to these institutions, now let's do our due diligence. Let's find out, who has the best fit, where we can get the best package for this child, how, we can, get them their degree with the path of least resistance. You know what I mean? Because in this day and age, as we all know, a lot of times it's just, where you get your degree is not as significant as the fact that you have your degree. Unless you're in business or law or something like that, that's very, very competitive and you plan on going to Wall Street or you plan on being an attorney for a Fortune 500 company. What's really important is, that we don't have $1,000 extra dollars, that we owe for this or that, or, we come out of school owing, and a very, very large amount of money with a bachelor's degree. So we just have to be smart. We have to help them make smart decisions, find the right fit for them, financially, as far as their living situation, but the whole thing. We have to look at the whole picture of the whole student and the whole institution and try to make the most sense, if that makes sense.
It makes great sense. So since we're now, we just talked about the outcomes of the data, and your common themes. I'd like to know the findings now. So what were the specific, you were talking about educational barriers. So
Sure.
What were the specific barriers then that unaccompanied homeless youth face when they were pursuing? Now you did say housing and food. Were there?
Sure. Great question. So question one was, what are specific educational barriers that unaccompanied homeless youth face at colleges and universities? The main barriers were completing the FAFSA. That was across the board. I mean, when we're preparing them, I actually was on the phone with a young man this morning from one of our high schools here in Philadelphia and his counselor, talking about this, preparing his McKinney-Vento letter. And, because they were having issues with the FAFSA, and just kind of talking them through that. So that's common. Completing the FAFSA. Housing and food insecurity was an issue across the board. So just being, prepared for that. And I talk about my daughter. My daughter, she's, at a university in Texas, and I'm here in Pennsylvania, and the cafeteria is closed when she gets out of her last class, and she can't make breakfast because she has to do this. So she has to buy food. So she has to go to the supermarket or figure out how she's going to get food. Food insecurity for, and this is my daughter who has two parents who, are sending her money and supporting her and, all this. Could you imagine if you don't have that? So food and housing insecurity are significant. Just where's my next meal going to come from? Even when I have a meal plan, sometimes it could be a barrier. As I'm learning myself every day. Lack of guidance and mentorship was another common theme. Just guidance, I know I did not have a lot of guidance undergraduate, and my grades reflected it. I didn't have a lot of guidance. I kind of did things on my own. I didn't really have anybody who took me under their wing and said, hey, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you need to pick this course, or I had two parents, they didn't do that. So I kind of had to feel my own way. So, imagine doing that without having two parents, so that's a major concern. And, financial hardships were issues. Whereas, my next, I get Cash App requests from my daughter all the time. Hey, I need money. Could you imagine, not being able to do that? I mentioned that earlier in this podcast. I personally could not imagine. My dad would give me, say, $100 a month when I was in college, and it was gone. Like, I couldn't call him and be like, I need more money. He was like, no, you need to learn to budget your money. You know what I mean? So imagine if you didn't have it. And I worked. I had a job throughout college. But, things are expensive, and don't try to have a social life. Don't try to get some new clothes. Don't try to, fit in with your peer group who's doing all these things, especially the ones who have money. So that was a major thing, financial hardships. So looking at making sure they get involved with work study. Employment opportunities, that kind of thing. And sometimes it's just advocating for them. It could be somebody on campus who knows that there's a position at this place. I've worked with students who, the SPOC was able to get them a job right away in the cafeteria. You know what I mean? I worked with a university, and they're able to put their kids right to work in the pantry. They're able to make sure that not only can you get food from the pantry, you can work in the pantry and you can get paid. You know what I mean? So that's just an example of stuff we need to be aware of and look for. But they were the main themes that emerged.
And a lot of times I think when students work on campus, they also get housing, which is a nice bonus.
Yes. I mean, it may be being a resident assistant or a RA. Right. That's what they call many places. And then, maybe the housing part is free,
Yes.
And you get a couple of hours here and there. But I mean, that's stuff that we need to look at prior to sending them, if possible. The students sometimes just don't know what they don't know, and according to my daughter, for an example, there's almost no jobs on campus. Mm. You know what I mean? So, sometimes it's just having an advocate there on campus who can help to navigate some of these systems and remove some of those barriers.
I keep thinking about the advocates that you're talking about and how important it is that these students have anybody who's looking out for them. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, when conducting intervention services, what kind of effects does that have on their success rate?
That's
And
great.
do you have like an example of an intervention service, what that intervention service would look like? I mean, if there's somebody that's listening right now to this
Hmm.
who works in higher ed,
Hmm.
that maybe we could tell them like, hey, this is,
Hmm.
this is something you could do,
Hmm.
or this is a way that you could
Sure.
look out for students who may be in this situation.
Sure, sure. So what I would say is that all of the students who had success identified a significant adult. All the students who had success identified a significant adult. All the students who graduated identified a significant adult on campus. One of the young ladies that I interviewed mentioned a professor who asked some of the tough questions, why she was sleepy during class, or did she need additional support? Because this young lady was working almost every night late, and she was getting up, and sometimes she'd be running into class with almost no sleep, and trying to study and trying to do all these things. And the professor took an interest in her and asked, and this ended up being her single point of contact. She wasn't an official single point of contact identified by the university, but she was a single point of contact who was significant. She's still close with this professor today. This was one of the young ladies. I guess she was about, when I interviewed her, I guess she was in her late 20s. So she had been out of college for a significant period of time, but she was working with this population herself. And she, was still in close contact with that person. So that person became a family member. So that's just, and that's what we do here sometimes with McKinney-Vento. I know that, in your region, Sonia does that. I know she is connected to these kids and they love her. I have students who come over my house for Thanksgiving. I've been working with them. I'm Uncle Al, and I've been Uncle Al for years. Just taking a genuine interest in these folks is what's the most significant. Asking the tough questions. One of the young ladies that I did a training with, she said that she just wished some people would have asked her, what's going on with you? Or what can we do to help? So I think that the significant part about having somebody like that is they can just check in with you periodically. Because if not, we're just holding all these things. We're holding all these things. We're taking them in, like we're trying to do these adult things, and we don't feel like an adult. And we don't have the necessary financial means to make some of these adult decisions and moves that we need to make. So just being able to help. So what I would say is, for a college university, just being aware that this population exists and putting as much in place as possible. I think a single point of contact is significant. It has to be someone who has a heart for this work. You can't just identify. It's like being a liaison in schools. Like I work with, here in Philadelphia, we have, about 300 schools. I work with some liaisons with some of the most fantastic people you've ever met in your life. And then I work with some liaisons who just have been identified as a liaison because they needed a liaison. I'm not saying anything negative about them, but, at the same time, you have to have a passion for this work because it requires a special person to do it. So these institutions should look for that special person who has the ability and the capacity to do the work and, financial means and resources in order to support them at the same time. One of our partner universities around here, they've given the liaison the autonomy to get stuff done. Their students who are who come out of McKinney-Vento are able to stay in the international dorm, which is open all year. They're able to get food when the dorms are closed. They're able to get jobs. They're able to work in the pantry. And, and this person is also able to help them with financial aid and other things that come about because they check in regularly with them. They've worked with community partners. They all meet and have dinner a couple of times a month. So it's just that connection. It's that direct connection. It's just that adult who has the ability to care and, help make some moves for these folks who need it so much. When McKinney-Vento goes away, there is a serious barrier that arises. And, I think it's really significant that we take all that into consideration. And, one thing I will say is they are trying to pass legislation. I can't speak to that legislation, but I see more and more on this topic and stuff that's coming up. I know NACE, I believe, is about to have a training about this, about preparing students going on to higher education. I spoke at the NACE conference about this. I spoke at the state conference about this. So it's people are aware. You know what I mean? Now colleges and universities, I think, have to get on board. And I think, until everyone's on board, we have to, kind of set the stage for these young people that are going to college or university or beauty school, wherever they're going, any form of higher education. We need to be aware that there are barriers they'll face and help remove those barriers before they're out of our care.
Well, I think it's because of, at least in part, because of the work that you're doing and the research that you've done, and going out and giving these speeches and speaking to this is really going to help people understand the bigger picture. It seems like common sense, that they would need this help, that they, I still have days where I'm like, I need an adult. So it makes sense that would be how it would go. But I'm so thankful to you for all the research and everything that you've done to get us to this point.
Yeah, and I agree with Amanda all the way. I think it's very beneficial for these students to have someone they can identify with, not only, in their situation, but someone that they can trust. I don't, always like to self-disclose, but, just thinking back when I was in college or when I was going to college, I wish I had an Uncle L, one, but, just someone in my high school to kind of, give me that warm handoff when I was going to college, because although it was an exciting adventure to be accepted into college, all I was thinking about was, well, how am I going to pay for it? Where am I going to live over the summer breaks? How am I going to eat when the cafeteria is closed? And, if it wasn't for me, trying to find these trustworthy adults, and I had to disclose my situation to them. I had to, tell them, because they didn't know. And like you said, you don't know if you don't know, like, you just don't know. So sometimes you have to advocate for yourself when there's not someone there to kind of hand you off. And if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't receive those services that I was able to get from that college and be able to go all 4 years without those stressors already in the way. So I think it is very, very vital for that warm handoff, for a student to find someone that they can cling on to, like a big brother, big sister type deal, have those supportive services in place, because they're already going through enough as it is to have to worry about, all of those other services. So I think it's very important. And I think this topic is very important, because when it goes away, it's scary. That transition piece is scary. Not having a plan in place is frightening.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And, it's getting better. And, the more, folks such as yourself are doing podcasts like this, and, and I'm speaking and other folks are speaking and just, advocating for this population, the prayer is that it continues to get a little better every year until it's no longer an issue. And it's just what we do as a society, as, higher education, as institutions. It's just what we do. We just put supports in place for students who need support, for all students, and and remove their barriers. So, I'm excited about it, and I am. I feel like it's going to happen. So, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think we're moving in the right direction.
So, what are your next steps as far as what you want to continue to do to hopefully enforce some change when McKinney-Vento goes away? Are there any next steps for you?
Well, I am, part of my, my doctoral work was, higher education. So I really wanted to focus on higher education reform. And, I've been in K-12 education for all my adult career. And, so I focused on higher education when I was working on my doctorate. And right now I'm creating a course at Villanova University, working with your counselor certification program, talking about it's a course going to be for, transitioning young folks to higher education, so counselors who are working now in our K-12 education system or high school counselors are more aware about this kind of stuff. So I think that's one step I'm doing. And, any chance I get to, shake a bush or knock on the door, that's what I'm doing. So, that's my goal and my mission. I'm doing some additional trainings for folks on this specific area. And it's just a passion of mine. So, I'm just looking for opportunities. As you say, I will be their voice. So it's my goal to be the voice of this population. And, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, we're thankful for that. We really are. It's always good to know that you have solid people on your team. And Uncle Al, I don't think it gets more solid than you. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. every time we talk, I have a warmness knowing that there's somebody out there that really cares and that are looking out for our kids. There are special people in this world who make sure that those who get lost in the crowd are still seen. And I'm thankful for you.
Well, I'll just say that, I cannot toot my own horn. I've really been blessed to work with some great colleagues. I think that, here in Pennsylvania, which is really what I could speak to, I think we are really a great group of regional coordinators. All my colleagues are fantastic people who really care about kids. You're really truly blessed to be in a region with one of the best. And just, from the top, from our leader, at the state, Carmen Medina, to, Storm Kamara, all the way down, all the regional coordinators and just everything we do. I'm just around good people. So we're doing good work. I'm around good people. And, I'm just, we're, the regional coordinators, it's 8 of us. We're one person with 8 moving parts. So it's really not just me. I'm just one part in the grand scheme of things. And I'm just happy to be that part.
Takes a village. That's for
Takes
sure.
a village for sure. So it's,
Yes.
It's really not me. It's the work that we're doing as a collective. And, it's my contribution to that collective.
Well, we appreciate your contribution for sure.
I just wanted to say thank you for your research. I am currently in grad school. And so I've learned a little bit about how that research is conducted and how that goes down. And so I know that it's a lot of work and you're already doing a lot of work with the kids. You said you didn't want to toot your own horn, so we'll do it for you. Do you want to do it with me?
Yes.
Toot toot.
Toot.
But really, we are a team, and I am thankful that I get to be a part of such an amazing group of people. It's really cool.
Absolutely. And be a part of a change. This is definitely an important one. So, but anyway, so thank you so much, Al, for your willingness to be our guest speaker for this month. This is such a great topic and very important, and it's very commendable with the research that you did. And we appreciate you sharing that with us and our audience. It definitely starts with building that strong collaborative partnership to ensure that our unaccompanied homeless youth, have that smooth transition when McKinney-Vento goes away. So I hope we have the opportunity to speak with you on future episodes to learn more about what Region 1 is doing and what's going on.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Al.
Thank you. You ladies have a great day, and God bless.
Thank you. And thank you, Amanda, for being my great co-host. And join us next time for another McKinney-Vento moment. And have a great day, everyone.